Tabernacle Baptist Church. My name is Pastor Kevin. This is Pastor Randy, and we're excited to share a great program today with you that we hope you can enjoy. The holidays are not always joyous for everyone. Some of you might be going through the loss of a loved one, maybe some anxiety, some depression. Maybe you're going through a recent separation or divorce. And here at Tabernacle, we have care ministries that are suited to fit these needs to help you navigate through those situations biblically. And so we hope that this program is a benefit for you. We're going to be showing video surviving the holidays, and Pastor Randy is over our care ministries here at Tabernacle. So Pastor Randy, can you tell us a little bit about these videos we're going to see?
As you know, there is no quick fix, no pill that you can take in dealing with grief and those things going through a divorce. But what this video does do, it helps us plan ahead so that we're not caught off guard. How to deal with some of the traditions that we used to do, how to create some new traditions. And when we create new traditions, it's not forgetting our loved one, but incorporating them in these new traditions. Also, how to deal with crowds. Getting in crowds, sometimes we get emotional, so how to deal with that. And then, there are family members that think we should move on.
All throughout the holidays, we're getting amidst all those different situations for sure. And so today, what you'll see first a video from Griefshare, ministry that we have here at Tabernacle, specializing in those loss of a loved one. And then as soon as that video is over, it'll be followed directly after by a divorce care video, dealing with separation and divorce there, surviving the holidays. So we hope you enjoyed this presentation. It will be continually showed throughout the day, and we hope it's a blessing to you as you go through the holidays. If we can be a help to you at Tabernacle, we want to be so. Please reach out to us online, on Facebook, or give us a call, visit our website, whatever the case may be. We want to be a blessing to you. But every Wednesday, Pastor Randy leads the Griefshare, and Miss Jessica LaCrone leads the divorce care. And so we hope that we can be a blessing to you, and we hope you enjoy this program.
The first Thanksgiving was horrific.
As Christmas would approach each year, the dread would start.
It's hard putting up stockings where it used to be 3 and now it's 2.
I used to say, I wish I could go to sleep the day before Thanksgiving and wake up January 2nd.
I still wanted to live in the past. And so I tried to cook Thanksgiving dinner. And I was trying to set the table and different things. It just broke my heart.
One of my kids said to me last Christmas, "This is going to be the worst Christmas ever." I thought, I hope so. I hope they don't get any worse than this.
Hi, I'm David, and this is my wife, Nancy. Like the people you just heard from, the holidays can be difficult for us as well. We lost 2 of our children, Hope and Gabriel. So we know what it's like to feel profound sadness during the holiday season.
I remember when we sat down to take that first family photo for a Christmas card after Hope's death, and it was all I could do to smile because I was intensely aware that someone was missing, and it hurt. To this day, David and I, along with our son Matt, still hang 5 matching stockings every Christmas season. And many of our ornaments have pictures of Hope and Gabriel, reminding us of our loss.
We want you to know that what you are feeling right now is normal. And even though the holidays are painful for you, they can also bring healing. It might not seem possible, but the day will come when you will be able to enjoy the holidays again.
We are so glad you are here, and we believe that by the end of our time together today, you'll be able to leave with a sense of hope for the future. Welcome to Griefshare, Surviving the Holidays.
Welcome to Griefshare Surviving the Holidays. Today you'll watch a video featuring the reflections of people who have made it through the holidays while dealing with grief. After that, you'll form a small group to talk about your experiences and concerns. To help you remember everything you'll hear in the video, we've prepared a holiday survival guide. Use its note-taking sections to jot down meaningful comments while you watch the video. Each survival guide is also filled with encouraging exercises, helpful suggestions, and wise insights to help you make it through the holidays. After this session ends, you can use it each day of the holiday season. But for now, turn to the note-taking section on page 3. We're ready to begin.
Obviously, the holidays can be an emotionally difficult time. But why are they so discouraging?
One reason is that the time from Thanksgiving through Christmas brings bittersweet memories to mind.
Well, my dad was in the hospital for Christmas. He died in January. In the chapel of this hospital, it had been beautifully decorated with poinsettias. And it was a lovely gesture, but it was so associated with my father's death. It took me like 20 years before I could have a poinsettia in my house. It was just too much.
She always had more gifts than everybody else. She was an educator, and all of her coworkers would give her gifts. And so it was just interesting to see her opening what she had. And so it goes by quicker now.
My mother-in-law is real intent to cook foods that she knew that my mom had cooked for me. So one of the things that happens during the holidays, it's like I can smell my mother's cooking.
Through college and after I graduated high school, I always came home for Christmas, and I had my own bedroom, and my mom would always have sheets pulled back and the room warmed up, tree would be up, and the house would be decorated, and it would just feel like it was Christmas time. But that Christmas, there was no tree. My dad hadn't put up any tree or anything like that. The room was cold.
We would hear chestnuts roasting on an open fire. The first one to grab the other person's nose, because it goes on to say, Jack Frost nipping at your nose. So we'd sneak up behind the other person just as the verse said that and grab their nose, and it would be a lot of fun, and we'd have a little tussle with that. And so the first time I heard that song after Jody died, it was so painful because I could practically sense Jody right there coming at me, but he wasn't there. It was so sad.
If you have children, there's a potential for even more sadness during the holidays. For practical information to help your child survive the holiday season, visit griefshare.org/holidays. There, you'll discover articles containing strategies to help your children as they deal with the many changes and challenges during the holidays.
I wish we could tell you that the holidays will be a breeze.
But no matter what you do during this season, reminders of the person you lost will still be unavoidable. Recognizing and accepting that fact will actually help you get through the holidays.
I had to go to a store to get some food. I walked in, the parking lot was full. It was just like, I think it was like 3 days before Christmas. And there were so many people. And I saw all this happiness, all this hubbub, all this noise and music and blinking lights and all these signs, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays and stuff, that it totally overwhelmed me. And I had this feeling of anger. I wanted to scream at the top of my lungs and say, how dare you be happy when my heart is breaking?
We like to use the analogy of this mobile that hangs over a child's bed, a baby's bed. You take one of those pieces off, it all gets out of balance. Well, especially those initial holidays, everything's out of balance. This isn't the way we usually did things because that person normally did that.
When we accept that that's going to be a part of it, when I accept that that's going to be a part of the territory, then I'm less likely to be shocked. I'm less likely to be blindsided. Now, that doesn't mean being pessimistic and fatalistic. It means just being realistic that there are going to be features and there are going to be moments that are difficult.
Instead of accepting that Christmas will be difficult, some people pretend nothing is wrong, so others will think they're doing well.
But disguising your grief will prevent you from getting the help you need.
I can remember at Thanksgiving being there with my family and wanting to cry and not wanting to mess everything up for everybody else and holding my tears. And somehow I wish that probably I had just cried and let everybody else cry and us get over it and just go on.
What really helps more than anything else is to be very honest. When people ask, how are you doing? You say, I'm struggling. I'm having a difficult time.
While it's important to be honest about how you're feeling, as Dr. Presson explains, it's equally important for you to be selective about who you open up to and when you do it.
I don't think that authenticity necessarily means that we wear our hearts on our sleeves everywhere we go. I think there are times that we need to consider, is this the place, is this the situation that is appropriate for me to open up or emotionally break down? The workplace, for example, may not be the best place to do that. Also need to consider, can this person handle what I might share?
In addition to avoiding or ignoring pain, many people try to numb it. But that response is an ineffective way of dealing with the holiday season.
Once you're done with your drug of choice, be it narcotics, alcohol, sex, or even shopping, your pain will still be waiting for you. Only then you'll be dealing with the pain of the holidays and the consequences of numbing your pain.
If your efforts to numb yourself are carried to the extreme, you could end up with a lot of debt, an unwanted pregnancy, or perhaps a physical injury, all topped off with a lot of guilt and shame.
To avoid painful consequences like these, you need to learn healthy ways of dealing with your hurt.
However, some of you may experience such intense pain during the holidays that you think suicide is the only way to escape. If that's how you feel, it's essential that you reach out for help right away.
There's a big difference in being okay with dying, like a lot of people who are grieving feel like I'd just like to die, and having a plan and a real serious intent that I'm going to do something about ending my life. If a person gets to the point where they are feeling suicidal, not just it would be okay for me to die, but I'm really intent on dying. I'm going to have a plan. I'm going to carry that out. That's irrational, that's unhealthy, that's unscriptural, that's not okay, and you need to get help immediately.
It's really important to have a plan for the holidays, because if not, I think the routine things that you have to do during that time, the shopping, the cooking, all of those things, they're overwhelming when life is good and pain-free. I mean, we all talk about the stress of the holidays. So if you're dealing with pain and loss and the emotions that are going to come up that you can't even really anticipate, you have to have a plan to get those other things done and to plan in the things that you hope are going to help you have a better holiday than you did the year before.
I'm not suggesting that we eliminate spontaneity. I'm just saying that we make some plans that stay flexible.
We can't emphasize this enough. Creating a holiday plan is one of the smartest steps you can take to survive the holiday season.
Here's advice on how to develop your plan.
What's helpful to a lot of people is to make a list of all the activities and events that are typically part of, for example, Christmas. office parties, Christmas cookies, decorating the outside of the house, decorating the inside of the house. How many people do you buy presents for? All that stuff. Make a list of every single thing that is associated with Christmas, and then go over each one and say, okay, do I need this for it to feel like Christmas? Or can I just let this one go? Do I really not care about it that much, really, now that my loved one has gone? But if I do feel like this is Christmas, can I do this by myself? Or do I need to ask other people to help me? Or do I need to ask somebody to do it for me? Or do I say, this is not the year to do it, but maybe I'll revisit it in another year. It's too much right now. And you can kind of rank the things that you really want to keep.
Planning helps you know what to expect during the holiday season. And knowing what to expect helps you avoid emotional ambushes.
One thing you ought to do is kind of replay in your own mind, well ahead of time, what that family tradition almost always involved, so that you are expecting these things to happen. So if your aunt always comes with a banana cream pie and she's not the one coming this year because she died, the fact that somebody else may bring a banana cream pie may really sort of trigger some emotion for you.
For some, holiday planning leads to the creation of new traditions.
One of the things that I did that I loved was having parties at my house. I would invite people for Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas time, and it was very overwhelming the years that I had lost many people. What I decided to do was still have the party, but just change the way that I did it. Instead of me being the one who prepared the whole entire meal, what I did was make it easier on myself and ask my family members to bring things so that it wasn't so overwhelming for me.
Steve and I were a big football fan, so after he passed away, I joined a free fantasy football league online. And so on Thanksgiving Day, I would fix a Thanksgiving meal for myself and watch football.
We decided that we would come together and have a celebration in honor of her. And we would all open the gifts that we had purchased for her. And as we opened the gifts, we all tried to do an imitation of her and try to react as she would when she would open the gift. And we had such a great time.
I found that making the holiday visit either just before the holiday or after the holiday made for a much better visit. From a practical standpoint, I didn't have to fight the holiday traffic, and so from the start, I was more relaxed. Once I got there, we didn't have all the circus atmosphere. I was able to actually have a conversation without all the noise in the background, and it worked much better.
I usually light a candle, and we put it in the living room window, and that reminds me that his life is still burning on.
Every year, my husband would give me something special at Christmas, and so when I would wake up Christmas morning, there would be a present in my stocking. And so right after he died, 6 months after he passed, I decided to make my own self a special surprise. So I went to the jeweler that he normally would buy jewelry for me. I had them make a special ring for me that would signify what grief really felt like. And so that Christmas morning, right after he died, I went to my stocking and I told the jeweler not to show me the ring at all. And so I had wrapped it up for myself. And so that Christmas morning, I opened it up and found the ring that I had them design for me. It was up and down the roller coaster ride of grief.
One of the new traditions that my sister and my mom developed was, instead of finding a beautiful Christmas tree, which was always a real high priority with my dad, they decided that was too painful. So they went on Christmas Eve day and brought home a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. Like they said, give me the ugliest tree on the lot. And then we would all decorate it, and it would look crazy. To the point that my sister's girlfriends would come around every year to see how bad the tree was. But if we had just tried to pretend that everything was the same and just keep on doing everything, I think it would have been ashes in our mouth. We just couldn't do it.
It's difficult to establish new traditions and new ways of experiencing the holidays. You don't really want to try something new during that time. In fact, you're going to probably experience a few holidays where you're wanting to do the same thing that you've done because it gives you a sense of this was the experience that I had when this person was in my life. I feel comfortable with that. And so a lot of times it can create a conflict because, again, the thing that you are accustomed to doing is also the thing that's causing you pain. And to jettison those things too quickly would probably be more painful. And so I think we've got to loosen, little by little, our grip on what used to be.
Some people may feel guilty about creating new traditions.
They might be afraid that new plans and activities suggest that they've forgotten about the person who died, or that they were eager to leave behind their loved one's holiday preferences.
There's a sense in which you don't want to have too much fun. You don't want to enjoy life too much. It's silly, but that's how we think sometimes.
There's a difference between moving on and moving forward, because moving on suggests that you're leaving something behind. Moving forward is that you're taking something with you. I think people get that confused. That life goes on sounds like a very callous thing, but life does continue. But you can continue with life, but with that love and those times that you had with that person.
Some of you may have tried planning and prioritizing your holiday activities before and found that it didn't help you. You were still miserable.
And that's okay. When it comes to surviving the holidays, you probably won't get it right the first time. Finding what works best for you may require some trial and error.
Even though we talk about making plans and setting some priorities and pacing yourself, is also to make sure you hold them very lightly. You never can anticipate everything that's going to happen, and you really can't always anticipate what your emotional response is going to be, even to that which you have planned.
It's like an experiment. That's the best way I can describe it. Because you may not feel the same way today. You may have a different mood tomorrow. When you're planning it, you may have a very good mood and motivation for planning it. But when the day comes, you may not feel that motivated. But it's a trial and error type of situation. But just give yourself the chance of trying something new, and then you will find out. And traditions are not set in stone. I don't have to do these just for the sake of doing it if I don't enjoy it. That's why traditions change.
And so I think, like anything else during the grieving process, you set your mind on what might happen, you make your plans, but then you always, in your own mind, reserve the right to alter them, to scuttle them, to change them a little bit.
It's the first Christmas after my husband passed. My family does a family reunion, and I was really worried about going to that. I thought people were going to say, how are you doing, or, what's it like, or whatever. And there was none of that. There was no mention of my husband's name. I mean, it was like it almost felt like they were avoiding things.
Unfortunately, Sheila isn't alone. Many people are surprised by how unwilling their friends and family are to discuss their deceased loved ones.
But most of the time, your friends and family aren't trying to be rude. They just don't want to upset you.
Sometimes I think the other family members are looking to us, the grieving individual, for guidance because they don't know what to do. And so it's so important to let them know, please talk about Uncle Fred and mention his name when you talk about him. So give them a little bit of guidance.
But you devise a plan, either a verbal plan or even a symbolic plan to say, I want to recognize the fact that he or she's not here. I brought this candle along. I'd like to be able to light this candle as a family in memory of my deceased husband or wife, and we'll just let that burn for the day while we're here.
During the holidays, some people will invite you to Christmas parties or other holiday events. If you're emotionally fragile, those interactions can be stressful. Here's advice to help you plan responses to those inevitable invitations.
When you get invitations, it's really difficult sometimes to evaluate, do I want to go or not? Maybe I'll just say no. Perhaps there's another option. You might want to think about saying, can you just hold my invitation lightly? I'm planning on coming, but it may change that day, because grieving people change several times during a day often. The day may start out well, and something may happen that just throws you for a loop, and you're having a grief burst, and you're not in a mood to go.
It is okay to say, I'm going to give you a tentative yes. Don't commit to that party just because you want to please someone or just to make them feel better. Just be honest and say, I'm still in the process. Some good days, some not so good, so I'll let you know.
If you venture out to a party or drop by to visit someone during the holidays, give thought to how you'll handle questions about how you're doing. Also, give thought to how you'll respond to prying questions.
You probably want to have a few things sort of scripted beforehand that you're going to say the same thing to everybody when they ask. Have some sort of sense of how much you want to disclose and how much you don't want to share and disclose. If we don't have that, then we can sort of flounder, and that can make us feel anxious and awkward. And now we're sharing more than we want to share, and then we feel pressure to answer people's questions.
It's not being impolite to say, I really appreciate your interest and your concern, but I just really rather not talk about it. And then you shift the subject. You change the subject by shifting the focus onto them simply by asking them a question. Hey Sam, isn't your daughter playing soccer for Summit High School? And you shift the focus by changing the topic, but it being something that they would be interested in.
Here's one more piece of advice. It's a good idea to have an exit plan or an approach to temporarily excuse yourself from holiday events and gatherings.
Few rules that I always followed for myself that worked out great is I never took a ride with anybody. I always drove myself so I could leave whenever I wanted to. That gave me a sense of security, like I don't have to stay. If I walk in and it doesn't go well, I can be out the door. And the other thing is not to have very high expectations for myself, to say, okay, I'm going to go with the goal first of just staying a half an hour. And if I make it, I can leave and go, great, you did it.
Things start to get a little bit too tough for you. Really encourage you to say to the rest of your family, excuse me, I'm going to take a little break from this now. It's really pretty difficult for me at this moment in time. Just give me an hour or two. I may come back and become part of it. But I think the whole idea of making sure you leave yourself an out is important.
When we got to the point that one of us was at the point where they're getting ready to break down, or they're not holding it together anymore, or the dam that's holding the tears back is getting ready to burst, we would communicate that and we would leave.
One of us will look at the other and say, I've got to go home. I've got to go now. I'm done. I'm finished. Let's go.
first Christmas was a blur. It was probably the most difficult Christmas I can ever remember in my life. It was even more difficult than the first Christmas after my dad. The second Christmas was a little bit easier than the first. Don't know what the third Christmas is going to be like yet.
It really does take time. For me, that first year was almost overwhelming, but I did get through it. The second year was the worst, actually.
The second Christmas, I didn't want to decorate at all because my heart was still hurting, and I wanted her to be there, and I knew that she could never be there again.
And the third year, as it approached, I thought, well, certainly by this time, I should be able to just, it won't be too bad. And then after Thanksgiving, as Christmas getting closer, and I get this horrible feeling of dread, and oh my goodness, I feel like I'm getting sucked under again.
The third Christmas, I just went through. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. I got my grandchildren over to help me decorate the trees. I changed it a little bit because my wife always had to have a real Christmas tree. I didn't like that. I didn't want to do it. I don't like putting the lights on them. So I decided, well, I can do a little bit about what I want now. So I bought me an artificial tree. I enjoyed it so much that I didn't want to take it down.
By the fourth year, I was doing a lot better. And I could put some decorations up in the house and enjoy doing that a little bit. I couldn't do that at all before. Other people's grief may be different. Maybe that second year, they're ready to put up the tree, decorate everything the way they used to do, go caroling. Well, that's fine, but if that's not where you're at, that's perfectly okay.
I've often heard people say, the second year or the third year was harder. I thought the first year was going to be the hardest. And I think sometimes as they sort of unpack that, they realize that either because of the timing or the circumstances, there were things that were happening that were keeping them from fully feeling those experiences and those feelings during their first year. And then in the second year, sometimes even in the third year, they feel that more fully because maybe the circumstances have changed, not just because they've slowed down and they can feel it, but maybe in the second or third year, the financial situation has changed and become more difficult.
First time, I still can't believe it. The second time, it's a reality. It's there. I am forced to face my situation.
It is normal because grief doesn't have sort of a statute of limitations.
And so it's going to be okay if you don't put up a tree this year. And maybe you wait till next year. Or if you decide you want to do that. But don't overwhelm yourself by things that are simply tradition if you don't feel up to it.
People who are hurting need to find additional ways to shift their focus, to get their minds, to get your mind off of the pain and off of the disappointment. One of the ways you can do that almost immediately is to focus on other people.
The blessing of serving other people at Christmas was a surprise to me because I've had a series of losses. A lot of times loss can make us very self-centered. When we hurt, we think about ourselves.
I make sure I contact other people maybe before the holidays or during the holidays and just try to do what I can, maybe just a phone call.
The times that I felt so low and so lonely and help came at just the right time. And if I can be that same gift to somebody else, what a blessing that is to me.
There's another relationship that's more important than any we've talked about so far in this video. It's your relationship with God. If you already have a relationship with Him, then the holidays are an opportunity to grow closer to or learn more about Him.
One of the best ways to do this is to talk to God about the difficulties you're facing and read the Bible to see what He has to say about your situation.
It's like we have to confront grief face to face and say to it, you are a pain in my life, but I can get through the pain with the Lord's help.
Because I can take refuge in my God.
Just being able to talk to God about what I'm feeling helps me, because I can come out and then be ready for the social scene, whatever it is. It carries me. Like after the prayer is over, I feel a lighter feeling that I'm being carried emotionally through the situation, whatever it is. I don't have to really be thinking about it anymore because I've let it go in the prayer.
And I am deeply persuaded that you ultimately deal with painful realities only one way. You deal with them vertically. Believing that this pain isn't a sign that he's turned his back on me. This pain is a sign that I still live in a broken world. But God's with me. And all that just says to me that I wasn't hardwired to live this life by myself. I was created for dependency, primarily dependency upon God.
I can take refuge in Lord. I need peace from you right now because the pain is unbearable. And you will experience God's peace.
There's no doubt the first years, several years, especially during the holidays around Christmas time, God and the strength of the church brought to me was my rock.
Your family will let you down. Your friends and your coworkers will let you down. And even people from your church will let you down. But even the times that you feel most alone, God is there.
Now, don't expect it to be automatic like pushing a button. What is important here is that you pour out your heart to the Lord. And Lord, I'm going to pour out my heart to you. I'm in pain. I'm in suffering. I don't understand why this happened. I cannot give any explanation, but I need you. You are my lifeline.
Josie's 31-year-old son, Brian, died in a car accident a few nights before Thanksgiving. After struggling to make it through that initial holiday season, Josie discovered that she still had reasons to be thankful and celebrate Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That year had been my 60th birthday. So I was so happy and excited and stuff that I started writing, making a list of all the blessings that I had in my life. And so every night before I go to bed, I would fill in that list. And by the time that Brian died, my birthday was November 15th. He died November 21st, 6 days later. But by the time that he died, I had about 70 items on that list. Several months went by, and then one day I opened the drawer and I see that list. Then I sat by my bedside and I started reading the list of all the things. And I realized that I had been focusing on the wrong thing. I had been focusing on what I didn't have anymore. But I needed to change and start realizing all the blessings that I had. Every breath we take is a gift from God. Okay, we take so much for granted, like our sight, our hearing, the fact that we are able to move and talk, and that we have a clear mind. Obviously, grateful for my son, grateful for my husband, grateful for my job. There's so many things that we take so much for granted.
Josie experienced God's comfort as she reminded herself of the blessings she still had, despite her son's tragic death.
Even if you can't think of one earthly possession or relationship to be thankful for, you can always be thankful for what Christmas reminds us of.
When we celebrate Christmas, we are not just celebrating Christ's birth or his coming into the world, but we're celebrating the reason that he came and the result.
If there weren't pain, suffering, sin, destruction, discouragement, and death, there would be no need for Christmas. This holiday is about suffering. This holiday is about pain. Now, what we've done, and it's right to do that, we've made this a holiday of celebration because we celebrate the coming of the Messiah. But in so doing, we forget why he came. He came to end suffering. He came to end death. He came to end sin and brokenness and pain and destruction and discouragement. And so this is the sufferer's holiday. Rather than the holiday be avoided, I ought to run toward Christmas.
When Jesus came to earth as a little baby that we celebrated at Christmas, really what it was saying was God says the battle is on. The things that have messed up life for everyone on earth, the sin, the evil, the suffering, the pain, the loss, all those things that have just infested and plagued every person on earth. God was saying, I am here to do something about it.
What Christmas tells me is there's hope for people like me that are going through what I'm going through. Christmas guarantees that God has, will, and will continue to address what I'm going through.
What an encouraging truth. Christmas is the sufferer's holiday. So while you may not want to put up a tree, go shopping, or attend parties,
Merry Christmas!
Christmas reminds us that we can rest in God's awareness of our pain and his plan to end all suffering. But there's more to his plan than simply putting an end to grief and sorrow. The Bible tells us that Jesus came to save us from suffering the consequences of our sin, our bad thoughts, disobedience, and even our tendency to love good things too much. In fact, that's why God told Joseph he should name his son Jesus. Now, let's say someone has a Christmas gift for you and leaves it at a mutual friend's house for you to pick up. Even though the gift is yours, you won't have it, won't be able to use it, or benefit from it until you pick it up and claim it as your own. And the same thing is true when it comes to the forgiveness God offers you. It's yours. You simply have to receive it by faith. To receive it by faith means you must believe and completely trust that Jesus lived and then died on the cross to pay the penalty for your sin. It also means that you believe that he rose from the dead and that he has the authority to direct your life. Do you believe those things are true? Then God's gift of forgiveness is yours. Let's take a moment to pray, thanking God for his wonderful gift. Just bow your head and repeat this short prayer silently to yourself. God, thank you for caring about me. And thank you for sending Jesus to die on the cross for my sin. I believe Christ died for me, that he rose from the grave, and that he has the authority to direct my life. Please comfort me as I grieve, and show me how to be more like you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. learn more about what it means to receive the gift of forgiveness, talk with your group leader or a pastor of the church hosting this Surviving the Holidays event. They'll be glad to answer any question you have or tell you what to do next if you've just received God's gift of forgiveness for the first time.
We hope that you have found the Griefshare Surviving the Holidays helpful for the upcoming holiday. And now, the Divorce Care Surviving the Holidays. We hope you will enjoy these presentations. We'd like to invite you to come be a part of this ministry. This coming January 5th, we'll be starting up new sessions for Griefshare and Divorce Care. So we would love for you to come and be a part of it. It's a 13-week session. You can come, and we would love to have you be a part of this great ministry.
That first Thanksgiving was especially difficult.
Christmas Day, after we opened presents, me and my family, I was depressed.
It was just my daughter and I felt guilty because I thought, this is Christmas time. I need to be spending this with my child. I was working.
First holiday was tough on personally myself because that was the first Christmas I didn't actually wake up with my children.
The holidays really kind of snuck up on me, and I was still in a daze and fog from my separation and divorce. So it was just, I don't know, it's just this horrible time for me. That first year was really, really rough.
I was alone, and it was just, the holidays were lonely and sad.
I didn't want to decorate. It wasn't in me, but I had to for my kids. So I just felt alone. I was just alone in it.
You'd see couples walking around, shopping together, doing things, and I would look at them and wonder, what do they have that I don't have? Like, what redeeming quality is in them that's not in me? How come her husband can see that in her, whereas my husband can't see that in me?
To these stories, I hope you can see that you are not alone and that you are in the right place to find help. Hi, I'm Steve Grissom.
And I'm Denise Hildreth Jones.
Denise and I know what it's like to dread the looming holiday season and avoid festivities that we once looked forward to. Both of us have experienced the pain of divorce.
Separation and divorce come with unspeakable pain. And as Thanksgiving and Christmas grow closer, that pain will likely be amplified as many of your holiday traditions are upended.
You may not have the energy or desire to decorate for Christmas. Your finances may be strained. Your children might be wondering why they won't see their dad on Christmas Day or why there aren't any gifts under the tree this year.
And if you convince yourself to attend a holiday party, it may be hard to enjoy yourself. In fact, after the third person asks you how your family is doing, you might even be ready to call it a night.
And as you can imagine, there's a long list of unhealthy ways you can numb your pain.
Today, we want to talk you through these holiday challenges. You'll hear from experts who have experience helping others who are separated or divorced. And you'll meet people like you who've learned some of the secrets of not only surviving, but even thriving during the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday season.
We're glad you joined us today. Welcome to Surviving the Holidays. If this is the first holiday season since your separation or divorce, you might be surprised at how deeply you're dreading this time of year. But even if it's been 2 or 3 years since the breakup of your marriage, you may find that even now you'd still prefer to skip the holidays.
It is normal because grief doesn't have sort of a statute of limitations. There's no timetable for grief.
The first time I still can't believe it. The second time it's a reality. It's there. I am forced to face my situation.
It's better to accept that there will be enjoyable moments and difficult moments. Maybe in the second or third year, the financial situation has changed and become more difficult. Maybe there is an issue with the children and how they're responding to the divorce. Maybe in that second or third year, my ex-spouse has begun dating seriously or gotten engaged or perhaps even remarried.
So we're caught off guard and we're surprised and we go, oh, what do I do with that now?
There are many family gatherings and parties woven through the holiday season. You may feel like avoiding them, either because you don't have the energy or because you want to avoid uncomfortable questions from family, friends, or coworkers.
Sometimes you're not ready to get out and go to parties and be single again. I wasn't. I was so fearful of I don't want to get back in that hurt again. I don't want to hurt like that again.
I did not go to any holiday parties or gatherings, mostly because when you're invited to something like that, it's as a couple. And I loved going to parties and events with my husband. It's not so fun when you're single.
I actually was pulling away and maybe had just thought, well, I don't need to be around anybody right now. But a friend of mine, he and his new wife had really encouraged me to come to their house for, Christmas lunch, and went down there. We ate and talked, and that right there, it made a great memory, and it was an absolute blessing.
There are going to be office Christmas parties. There are going to be Sunday school class parties or other kind of social gathering parties that you probably were a part of and attended previously as a couple. If you don't feel like going to that, I think it's really okay.
Holiday parties to me was a little intimidating, with a lot of different people maybe who would ask me, where's your husband? What's happening with your husband?
I think you just have to gauge where you are in the grieving process and if you're able to handle that. You really have to decide internally, am I not going to a party because I'm trying to get a time away and quiet myself and really reflect on what's going on, or am I doing that because I'm avoiding and I'm afraid that I'll lose control when I go into a crowd? Doesn't mean that you still have to go. It's just really important to understand the motivation behind that, because the last thing you want to do during the holidays is isolate. That is one of the key predictors of people getting depressed.
I think you have to decide, are these people in my life enough that it doesn't drain me to go? So if they're good people in your life and they know what you've been through and they love you and you feel safe with them and you can relax in their presence, then I think allow yourself to receive their company and their gift of hospitality and all of that. If it's going to drain you dry because they're going to pummel you with questions about what happened and you're not feeling safe and you're feeling a little threatened by, what might come up or who else is going to be there or who might else ask you, it's okay to say no.
You get dressed up and you drive yourself and you're sitting at the table by yourself. And even though you're surrounded by people that love you and care for you, I wasn't ready to put on a dress and sparkly earring. No holiday parties this year. Maybe next year.
You will likely also get invited to holiday gatherings with your immediate family. How should you handle those invitations?
Depending on the kind of relationship you have with your family can affect how are you going to handle it.
If it's your core family, I'm not talking about in-laws, but your core immediate family who love you, understand you, support you, know what you're going through. I I'd be hesitant to reject that invitation. I get it that you likely participated in that holiday event with the family, with your ex-spouse as a couple, but your family has known you before you were a couple. They're going to know and love you after you were a couple. They love you and want to be with you because it's you.
But if your family is the kind of family that gives you the love you need, it still might be very difficult and exhausting. If you have somebody in your family that understands how brokenhearted you are right now, if they're willing to talk ahead of time to the people and say, she doesn't want you, or he doesn't want you to talk about his ex, or, the situation that led up to the divorce. Can you avoid talking about that situation? That can be helpful.
But even in that more intimate family situation, folks had no idea what was going on. That first Thanksgiving was interesting because I really remember somebody like, so where is Kentrell? And that just took me into a bad place. And then the rest of the meal was not a happy time because then I'm focused on, well, things have changed. This is a yucky, really yucky feeling of where I am.
You might want to say ahead of time, I'm going to come for the meal, but I'm not going to stay all day like I usually do. Or maybe I'm going to stop in for a brief time later in the day after you're all finished eating. And just say, I'm struggling right now.
My kids and I came up with a code word. When one of us was ready to leave, we would say that. We didn't want to offend the rest of our family, but we wanted to be sure that we were taking care of ourselves.
Navigating the holiday season can be complicated by the unresolved conflict between you and your former spouse. Now, it's essential that you don't put your children in the middle of the skirmishes that are likely to arise in the weeks ahead.
Do not let them hear you arguing about how they're going to spend Christmas Day. If you need to, you create an entirely separate Christmas Day. It doesn't matter if it's on the 25th or the 24th or the 26th. What matters is the memory you are creating for your child, the meaning of the holiday that Jesus came to bring us hope and life and a future. And so focus on that as opposed to the day. Don't let that be a sticking point from you really honoring the day with your child, because that's what matters.
What are the things that your children really want to continue? It's really meaningful to them. And if it's possible for you to continue those traditions, I would say continue them.
This may seem very obvious, and yet I don't think it's obvious at all. But it is important to tell your children when they go to the X to have a good time, to actually enjoy themselves with their other parent. It's hard sometimes for us to do that when we're the parent who isn't happy with the child being taken away or being away from us at the holiday. But the best thing you can do is say, okay, you're going to spend time with your dad. I hope you have a great time. In fact, let me pray with you about that. I hope you can bless dad and that this will be a time that you and your dad can really have together. If you can do that and set your children off with a positive message about that parent, you're doing them a great favor.
One December, when I was in the hospital for the month of December with a major spinal cord injury, and my children had already received plane tickets from their mom to spend the holidays with her. And that was a real tough decision, but I made the decision to support them, and they would continue on with their holiday trip with their mom while I was in the hospital. And that was the toughest Christmas ever.
Divorce also creates a financial hardship for many people. You have more expenses, often with significantly less income. But even when money is tight, with careful planning, Thanksgiving and Christmas can still be both meaningful and memorable.
The way I prepare my kids for my new single Christmas is I kind of roughly give them an idea of what my budget is. I'll say you can get this pair of shoes and this particular toy, or my daughter loves makeup. I'm like, you can get this palette and that, or something that's about that price. And I know people don't like to have those conversations with children about money, but you have to when you're single and your income is very limited, because they have to understand that there's needs and wants, and our needs are come before our wants.
The budget for Christmas gifts was very, very small. Unfortunately, her needs were always very simple. You know, she'd want a puzzle or a stuffed animal, and then she'd have one big item, and I would have to start preparing back, like August or something. So I always try to get around in September and ask her to start preparing her Christmas list. So, get a little bit at a time.
I knew Christmas was going to be very, very small. I didn't buy a tree. I used like a Schefflera plant that I had. It looked a little tree-ish, and so we didn't have too many ornaments. It was going to be a different holiday for us, not the same. Didn't mean it was going to be worse. It was just going to be different. And so we went outside and picked up little pine cones, baby pine cones, about this big. And since I'm an art teacher, of course, we're going to have to turn that into an art project. And so we would take them and soak them in bleach, and then you can put them in the oven, and they turn white. And then we made those as little ornaments, and then we'd put those on our Schefflera. They look like a tree, and that was our thing. And then I went to the Dollar Tree with a few things, and you can get a lot of things at the Dollar Tree for as gifts and things, and wrap them up, and it looks like you spent a lot of money on it, but you didn't. And they were some slim times, but they were some amazing times.
It's very important also to talk to your spouse about gift buying. One parent feels guilty, and so they buy the child a lot of stuff, a lot of toys, and it almost becomes like a competition for who's going to have the best Christmas. I notice a lot of dads do this. They'll take their children and they'll just, take them to Disney World and buy them all kinds of stuff, and it's this whirlwind of a couple of days, and it's wild and exciting. And then they go back to mom, who's maybe, on a budget, can't do those kinds of things, and has the children every single day and is really struggling. And so you don't want to set up this competition for the attention of the child. You want to make sure that you're giving them your time and your attention rather than things. And kids will tell you long into adulthood that it was the time I wanted with my mom or my dad, not the stuff that they tried to use in some ways to make me feel better and to buy me.
So how can you create a family memory that really matters? It won't be about the gifts. It'll be you decided to roast marshmallows on the Christmas candles. It's not going to be the fact that you had bigger packages. It's going to be the fact that you turned on I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas and you twirled around with your little one in the living room floor. Those are the memories that your kids will hold on to.
So when I started my budget, I only had money for food, shelter, clothing, and I had no extra columns at first. And so it got close to Christmas time, and I realized kind of mid-November that I had no money for Christmas, and I would not have any money for Christmas, for any Christmas gifts for my son or my family. It was a horrible feeling, and I called my family and let them know that I would not be able to participate in gifts this year. It was very humiliating, but the next year I redoubled my efforts to fund a Christmas fund, and I found I had excess, so I was able to actually help 2 single moms and a single dad with Christmas. And every year I've been able to gift someone at Christmas something with this fund.
Normally, the holiday season is a source of joy. Its traditions provide a sense of stability and security designed to bring families together. Now, no doubt you have memories of annual holiday rituals unique to your family. Some of them might be quirky and fun, and others passed down for generations.
But with your separation or divorce, some of those familiar traditions may be fading away, and you're left grieving their loss.
Holiday traditions with my daughter was really important to me, that quality time together. We found new traditions. Our church does a Thanksgiving meal for the people in our community every year. So we go in and the first thing in the morning, and church members donate cooked turkeys, and we just kind of line up on a big table, and we all pull the turkey off the bone and put them in pans for preparing for that meal. So my daughter did that with me. It was really satisfying to be able to spend that time in service. The Christmas holidays, we have to we share that same day. So my wife always has her Christmas Eve, and then we have to split Christmas Day. So I usually go and pick her up around 8 o'clock in the morning and take her home at 5 o'clock in the evening. So that kind of, I miss out on that time when she gets up to see, when she was younger, to see, what Santa left her and stuff, and the presents and stuff, and seeing her joy and opening all that stuff. But we found new traditions for the holidays, for Christmas Day. So when we would come back to my house, we would sit down and read the Christmas story found in Luke chapter 2. So that kind of became a new tradition for us, and it helps us to stay focused on what Christmas is really all about.
Before every holiday, I would sit down with my kids and discuss, what would you like to do? What do you feel like doing? They didn't want to do Christmas, but we did a modification. So we went and had dinner with our family and we exchanged gifts, but we left early and we went to the movies. And that was something new for us, but it was healing and it was bonding. But it was important for me to sit down with them and ask them, what would you like to do?
A new tradition I started with my children, when I do have more Christmas, we pick out a Christmas tree. So I make sure that we go pick out a Christmas tree together with me and my children. We decorate it. So when they come to the house, I make sure they are able to put their ornaments, their particular ornaments on it. And we do it together. And I make a big day out of it. That's one of the main traditions I have started with them. And they love it.
To make new traditions and new activities, I went online to try to find some fun games. And one that we found that we just really liked was a saran wrap ball filled with candy, and in the very center was $20. And we went around the table, all of us, and one by one we removed some of the saran wrap. And those who got candy got a prize, and then we just kept going and going and going, and there was lots of candy and lots of laughter. And so I looked for those new things that we hadn't done before that was just going to be fun.
As you deal with some of the changes in your holiday traditions this year, here are some helpful tips you'll want to consider.
One thing you don't want to do is isolate yourself. This is the wrong time to decide to close all the windows and the doors and to shut everybody out. Because if you do, you'll spend your time home miserable and in tears. No. Connect with people. Find someone, someplace to go and somebody to be with for the holidays.
Spend some of that time reaching out to friends and saying, when can we get together? Maybe we can do a movie one night, or maybe we can have game night at my house. You might be saying, I don't have the energy to clean my house or create a meal or things like that. So maybe you could go to Starbucks and take a bunch of games.
Maybe this holiday season, you got to be willing to accept help from other people who want to make your holiday special. And so the question you want to ask yourself there is, are you willing to let people help you and do things for you? When you're grieving and when you're going through the holidays during these tough times, you're not going to have as much energy as you did before. So there are going to have to be things that you let go.
My strongest piece of advice for somebody who's just in the front end of a divorce heading into the holiday season is give yourself grace. Grace upon grace upon grace. Don't put such a heavy expectation on yourself to be all full of Christmas cheer and doing everything that you would normally do, the parties, the decorating, cut out what you don't have to do and give yourself that time and space and energy to rest and to focus on the meaning of the holiday, because that is what your spirit is most going to need in this particular season.
Thanksgiving and Christmas are reminders of God's kindness and generosity to each of us. But after your separation or divorce, it's probably tough to focus on those themes, and that's understandable.
But it's easier to get through the holidays if you remind yourself of some of the ways God has shown His goodness to you.
The Pilgrims had survived a bitter winter, and they celebrated going through the bitter winter and the harvest with a feast of Thanksgiving. Right now, in your life, you might be going through that bitter winter. You don't see any harvest. You don't see any good coming out of it. So it's difficult for you to celebrate. But in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, Paul says, in every situation, we give thanks.
God tells us it's important to give thanks in all things. Psychologists have studied gratitude, and they say that gratitude acts like an antidote to poison. The poison of envy, greed, hatred, anger, depression. Paul, who is no stranger to suffering and hardship, says, whatsoever things are good and true and right and lovely, let your mind dwell on these things. And that takes work sometimes to change the channel and go from negative mindset to a more grateful mindset. But God says that when we do, and studies now say when we do, it actually affects our mood, and not only our mood, but our outlook and our body. So it's a good thing to do.
Put a little jar on the middle of the kitchen that says gratitude, and every day of the month of November, have your kids put one thing in there that they are grateful for, so that maybe around the Thanksgiving table, you can pull that jar out and you can take one slip of paper out at a time, and together you can see, yeah, we have this pain right here, front and center, but look at all this that God has done. Look at all that we have to celebrate and reflect on and honor and focus on. So it helps ease just the heaviness of that burden as you think about all the good things that God has done.
Your ex-spouse cannot take that away from you. They can't take the promises of God away from you that are eternal in nature. And so as hard as it is, and we're not going to sugarcoat it, especially around the holidays, God can help you cultivate the grace of Thanksgiving anyway. You may be inviting some neighbors that you don't know very well, maybe a few homeless people, maybe some others from your church who have been divorced or widowed. And you may sit around a table that's completely different from your former Thanksgivings or what you would always envision Thanksgiving to be. But as long as you have Christ, you can cultivate the spirit of Thanksgiving even when it's hard. We're not going to act like it's going to be easy, because it won't. But God can give us the strength to do hard things.
Now, just because it's the holiday season, you don't need to pretend that you're happy. The losses you experienced after separation or divorce should be mourned. But as you do, you can add hope to your life by reflecting on the reason we celebrate Christmas.
It's so easy to lose sight of what's Christmas really about.
In the past, it was all about me, what people had done to me, what my wife had done to me. I look forward to the holidays now because it's not about me anymore. It's about Christ and what He had done for me and changed my life.
It's not about rushing to church to get a good seat and tearing open your gifts, or skipping church so you can tear open your gifts. It's about family. It's about celebrating the birth of Jesus.
In the midst of the holiday parties and gift exchanges, it's easy to forget that Christmas began as a response to a fundamental problem we all face. We are prone to ignore our Creator. Our guilt and regrets cause us to shy away from Him. But in his great love, God sent his son, Jesus Christ, to make a relationship with him possible. To learn more about how you can have such a relationship with the Lord, see the article, What to Do with Guilt and Regrets, in your survival guide.
When we're thinking about the Christmas holiday and the true meaning of the holiday, we're talking about the birth of our Savior. Someone who came to give us life, and that life more abundantly. Someone who came to deliver us and save us from our sins.
God came near to his people. There is hope for the world. That's the good news. And even in the midst of our sadness and loss and the difficulties that brings to our lives, we all need to be reminded that because of the Christ child, there is hope beyond our current circumstances. It doesn't always mean every moment is happy. We walk with God in our sadness, and he cares deeply about it. But it does mean that this life is not all there is.
Before your separation or divorce, it was probably a lot easier to think about the true meaning of Christmas or about the hope found in God's love. But with all this disruption and messiness you're dealing with, is there a place in your life for hope and for God's love?
It's going to be messy. Things aren't going to look the way they've always looked. But here's what's beautiful about Christmas. Jesus came into a very messy manger. And he came for the purpose of bringing hope out of darkness.
The story of Christmas is a story of a lot of unplanned things that happened. It didn't go the way people expected. When Joseph was pledged to be married, he didn't expect her to get pregnant with God's child. And then, of course, Mary was pregnant. She didn't expect to have the baby in a stable with all these animals around. People, even then and even now, didn't expect, our salvation to come in the form of a little baby in a manger in a stable. And I think for us, when we're dealing with the holidays and Christmas, the meaning is our life isn't always the way we planned. Things don't turn out the way we expected them to happen.
And so for you to be having a rough Christmas, it just really reflects what Jesus himself went through on that Christmas morning so long ago. If you can focus on that and be honest and real about where you are and take that pressure off to have the perfect holiday and instead have a little birthday cake for the one who came into a mess and honor him, it may end up being the best Christmas you've ever had.
So glad you joined us today. We know this will not be an easy time for you, but you can still enjoy Thanksgiving and Christmas if you plan ahead for the challenges you are bound to encounter and as you reflect on God's kindness to you.
Now, we've given you a lot to think about today, and to help you process it, we'd like you to spend time talking about these ideas in a small group setting. Now, we don't want you to feel any pressure here. It's okay if you don't want to say anything during this group discussion time. But our experience tells us that as you interact with others who face similar struggles, you'll experience some healing and growth as you tell your story.
Don't miss all the additional tips, insights, and resources included in your survival guide. You can turn to this guide for practical help to navigate challenges throughout the holiday season.
And if you found today's seminar helpful, please take a look at our Divorce Care program. Divorce Care is a weekly group that has a format much like you've experienced today. It's a place where you'll feel welcome and understood.
I was married 3 times, but I've also been divorced 3 times. And that has been a very rough situation to be able to go through. But if it wasn't for Divorce Care, I wouldn't really know how to handle it.
It gives you a very clear roadmap to how you can journey along the road of divorce and come out a totally different person on the other end.
I looked online and I found Divorce Care, and that actually has been a very good group to help me work through these issues.
I think Divorce Care has been great. I'm so glad that 2 of my friends suggested it to me.
Because of Divorce Care, I was able to really get my bearings, give myself grace, allow myself to heal.
It definitely changed who I was.
I'm happy that I've gone through it and that I'm still involved in it.
I formed friendships with people who I might not have met otherwise, who have now become a support system.
When I discovered Divorce Care, I discovered the value of finding a group of people who were dealing with or had dealt with similar things, and having that connection of people around me that I can pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm getting ready to go bar hopping right now because my house is driving me crazy. And to be able to have somebody say, hey, you know what, you probably don't want to do that.
This has been probably one of the most important components of my healing is going through Divorce Care.